everybody. Mages and Sages here. Jeff Thetford, creator, co-creator. Curry is not here. He's not feeling well. We're here joined again, as always, with Ed Greenwood of Ed Greenwood, Forgotten Realms creator and writer extraordinaire, as they say. Also with Andrew Valkauskas. Is that correct?
That is correct. Good
Oh, I said it.
pronunciation.
Look at me. Look at me. I'm already a Norse man. I could talk to you like I do the Dwarves, but everybody hates it. That's my Dwarven accent. It should be more northern, but it's not. It's more Irish and Scottish.
Oh, that's perfect. That's where the world is going right now. We just released Children of Ariu, our first Celtic RPG.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh, so Ed, there you go. I had to talk like this the whole time then.
Oh God, no. I mean, yes, of course.
Well, as we said before, we're here to help promote here the Kickstarter for Fate of the Norns. And if you want, I'll let you guys kind of introduce what's going on here, and then we can kind of discuss about this ultimate Viking compendium you're put together here.
Sure, absolutely. So I'll start the intro, and Ed can definitely pick up whatever I missed here, because there's a whole lot here that I'll definitely miss something. So to summarize very quickly, I mean, we have been shuttered in for the last 18 months. A whole bunch of creative types, so authors, game designers, artists, the works. And we haven't been able to go to conventions. We haven't been able to go to game stores to peddle our wares or even play face to face. So we have been noses to the grindstone and just toiling and toiling away, writing books, designing games, and churning out beautiful artwork. So what the Ultimate Viking Anthology is basically a culmination of everyone's work over the last 18 months. So we have three wondrous novels, one from Ed Greenwood, the man down here, one from Michelle Franklin, and one from Stephen Pearl. So Michelle, everyone knows from our previous book, Creatures of Fairy Tale and Myth, where she introduced a character called Mindel, who was a hapless missionary wandering through the dangerous Viking realms. But for some reason, he had something stuck up his butt that kept him alive, and basically it brought all the bad luck to everyone around him. So the misadventures of Mindel is less about his own misadventures, more the misadventures of anyone meeting him. And then Stephen returns with book 2 of his trilogy. So this is the sequel to Fjorn and his warband that you saw in the Mistletoe, in Horn of the Kraken. I'm sorry. And book 2 is the Mistletoe Spear. So the best way I describe this is a Viking heist. Picture Ocean's 11 meets Lord of the Rings. It's a total roller coaster ride of a novel and a series of novels. His books have been perfect for turning into role-playing game adventures. So his first novel turned into 2 adventures called Dead Man's Blade and Horn of the Kraken Adventure. And then the second novel, I don't even know how many we're going to churn out of that one. So those are the 3 novels. I'm going to let Ed talk about his novel, and then I'll talk about 2 graphic novels, and then Ed and I will elaborate on our role-playing game.
Yes, the one-eyed king, correct, Ed?
Yes. Well,
yes,
okay.
Tell us.
Really quickly, you get 3 novels here, and if Stevens is adventure, the classical guys with swords out in the wilderness, okay, and Michelle's is a laugh riot.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is one of these books that you will just have a smile on your face, and you're going to see the next thing coming as Mindel wanders obliviously through life saying, well, I think God would like this. And you just know what's going to happen. Okay, so what I give you, now Michelle's book visits Askleath for a few key scenes. What I'm giving you in The One-Eyed King is a book that, aside from 2 scenes where characters are on the water, either coming to the city and about to dock or leaving the city, everything else is inside the city walls. And it is sort of like a slightly more serious version of Fafnir and the Grey Mouser, the Lankmar stuff, where you're in a city. And what we see at the beginning of the book is 2 Hibernians, 2 Irish, a young man and a young woman, and they have come to the city with specific missions. And I don't want to spill too much of the beans, but the first line of the novel is, "I am come to kill the king."
Dun dun
Okay.
dun.
Dun dun dun. That's right. Talk about drawing
And
you in.
And of course, these people have never been to Athcliath before. They've never been to any big city before. And because they were sent by their clans, they have people they're supposed to meet to give them the lay of the land, kinsmen and so on. So we get to look over their shoulders as they go to an inn, as they and take room, and as they start wandering around the city. And then the book just sort of grows as we get to see more and more different characters and their lives in the city. So this is not a travelogue book. It is following the unfolding adventure, but the cast sort of grows sideways of characters in the city, and you get to see what it's like to walk into a shop. You get to see an Irish noblewoman walking along with her bodyguard in matching gear all around her in a ring so nobody can get at her. You get to see a slave break because this is the city of golden slaves. And if you want to do something hanky panky in the city, what's the best way to do it? Do a slave break. And then hopefully the king's soldiers who patrol will pay all their attention to the slaves. And you get to see the Shadow Hands, which are the king's secret police that everybody knows about. But, his extracurricular unlawful beat the crap out of you people. And you get to see various people, like there's a bunch of fun blowhard adventurers who sit there and talk to each other all the time after meeting clandestinely in yet another of their favorite taverns, and then talking about what's happening in the city. But there's way more talk than action. It's sort of like when you go down to your local and you shoot the breeze with there's a bunch of them. And then there's the king's pompous ass of a envoy, Volander the Voice,
Hilarious.
who gets sent all over the city. And by the end of it, he's sweating, he's puffing, and they're deliberately saying, "Oh, I think I saw her there." And they mention a club that's at the other end of the city. So off he goes, off, and he gets there and says, "Oh, no, she hasn't been here today, but I think she's at," and names the club he just came from. So,
like
yeah.
Mert.
So there are funny bits in this book, but it is really what it's like to live in a city, and what it's like to have adventures in the city, and what it's like when things go wrong.
Right.
And is the king going to survive? What's going to happen?
Wait and see.
Yes.
And this is what I love about the fact that we're releasing Ed's novel with the box set RPG of the city of Athcliath, is the fact that players could read the novel and get really an amazing feel of the setting and how to set the tone for the table for that city. Because a lot of times you'll end up picking up an RPG supplement and you'll be like, I don't know, just from like rules heavy writing and the technical style, I'm not getting the feeling of the city. Like what's the tone of the author or the designer that's coming across. But with pairing with a novel, it's a total game changer.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And then there's a lot of stuff here. Now, did they have to buy that earlier stuff to use this? And this isn't like a supplement that could could be dropped in anybody's campaign?
Absolutely. So the way we've designed the Kickstarter is that you can come in on the first tier, which is basically pick and choose. So you buy in at just $5 to be able to pick up any extras. So pick and choose which single books you'd like to get. You can also go in for the digital bundle, which is get the anthology all in PDF. And then there's the option to pick up, just if you're a gamer, you don't care about reading any of the graphic novels or the novels, you just want the RPG box set, you can get that. And then there's the Gimme Everything printed version. Yeah. And that's like the RPG, the 3 novels, and the 2 graphic novels. So I'll jump into the graphic novels right now, and then we can circle back to the RPG. Yeah. So the 2 graphic novels are my projects with 2 different artists and 1 co-author. So the first one is Vergesa the Firewolf. So she's kind of one of the major characters in the Fate of the Norns universe. So she's kind of like the Elminster of Forgotten Realms, or a Drizzt kind of style character that kind of is woven through many, many story arcs and appears in different types of settings. She will appear in the box set. She's appeared in some of the big book expansions that we've had, and she's appeared in one of the novels, Scythe and Sword. She has one foot in the Finnish mythos, so her early upbringing, she has been tied to the gods and goddesses of the Kalevala, but her early childhood was saved by Loki, and now in the first age of Ragnarok, she's going to save Loki from his imprisonment, because after Balder died, he was imprisoned in Vergelmir with a poisonous serpent that's basically dropping venom on his forehead, and he's in torment. And she's going around trying to find the keys to break the seals to let him out. You can imagine the powers that are rallied against her, stop her in her journey. But she also has certain helpers and certain secret helpers that are helping her along her way. And so the saga of the Firewolf that I'm doing with Vincent Pompetti is one small chapter of her journey that we are putting together. And this is kind of the style of those French graphic novels like Elric. So it's like almost an 8.5 by 11 full color gloss graphic novel, somewhere between 32 and 48 pages. Next one is a series that we're hoping to start of turning the Icelandic and Norwegian sagas into comic books. So a lot of them are, they're really fun to read, but for a lot of people, getting over those academic translations is just a snooze fest. They're like, oh, they crack it open. Next thing they know, they're like, they're falling asleep. So what we wanted to do was to bring an accurate translation with pairing us with a really funny artist that has really, really good expressive artwork for his animated characters, and that's Jonathan Borello. And I'm co-writing this with Annie Frenger, who's a professor of medieval studies, and this is one of his favorite sagas. It's Eyrbyggja saga, and this is if you could have a Coen Brothers style Icelandic saga. So a whole bunch of threads of different people. It's kind of like, it starts looking super chaotic at the beginning, but starts weaving together by the end of it. And you get this kind of like crazy explosive ending at the end of the saga. And so this one we're kind of working through probably a two-parter, because it's a big saga. And so this is why I'm co-writing it with Andy. And that leads us to the flagship of this, the Big Daddy, which is the box set Athcoliath, which is what Dublin was called in the 10th century. We're kind of set around, 930 AD, somewhere around there, Ed. And this box set, obviously, it harkens back to the old Waterdeep box sets, City Greyhawk box sets, with like a big fold-out poster map that you can see on the Kickstarter. And there's 4 books that are going to be inside this box. So 2 of them Ed's writing, 2 of them I'm writing. The 2 that I'm taking care of is, one of them is to deal with how to run a city adventure, the game mechanics behind things like a street cred statistic or an attribute, where you're actually building up your street cred as you're going on adventures in the city. Another one is social combat, how you would add social combat to any RPG. So we've got already a system woven into 5e. We've got social combat woven into our Fate of the Norns Ragnarok system. And we're going to show you how to add it to Pathfinder, how to add it to Powered by the Apocalypse, to make social combat as interesting as physical combat. Because as you know, like a lot of these RPGs, you have combat that can last like 45 minutes, and it's like really crunchy, and there's a lot of steps, and there's a lot of like interesting maneuvers and abilities. But when you get to social combat, it's like, okay, do a charisma check. And the entire like Fate of a Nation's peace treaty boils down to one roll. So we don't want that. So we've got a whole book that's going to be pretty much about game mechanics that are for city-centric adventures, along with skills, talent trees, feats, things like that you can add to whatever type of RPG system you're using. And we're going to have an entire chapter devoted to the runic gaming system for the Fate of the Norn system. Second one is a dweller creation or character creation booklet, where you can actually create any kind of character that would live in a city. So for a low fantasy setting, so you were kind of in a situation where you're trying to put ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances, just like Ed's novel. None of these
Mm-hmm.
people are demigods. They're ordinary people that got caught up in really, really extraordinary circumstances. And so this book is all about character creation, life path systems, relationships, gangs, cabals, things that you can join within the city. And so that's more on the game mechanics side. Ed, he's got two books that he'll talk about that just basically give you a beautiful rundown of what the city has to offer.
All right. Awesome. And Ed, before you do that, I wanted to ask because you were talking about Loki earlier. How much of this is drawn from mythos other than names? I mean, you were talking about, I mean, how much does this follow actual mythos if you went and picked up a book of mythology and started reading about Ragnarok and the Vikings? How much of this is going to be coinciding with that? Apparently, that was a good question.
This beast over here
Yeah.
is 3.5 years of my life.
Is it really?
I translated the prose and poetic Eddas from their Old Norse to modern English, and tried to set everything in a chronological order. Tried
Look
to
at that cover.
Look at that cover; it's beautiful.
tried to take it all the inconsistencies apart. So anything that was basically, mythology is dirty and messy and inconsistent, and I put everything in appendices that didn't make sense in an overarching narrative. I added stuff from the Kalevala, from the Mabinogion, from the Levorgabala, to basically give you a tapestry of the Norse, Celtic, Finnish, Swedish, and Germanic myths, along with some
Right.
Baltic and Inuit as well, because Vikings weren't insular, they're raiders and traders. So one of the goals of our Fate of the Norns universe is to be completely 100% as accurate as we can be with history and mythology. So you can pick up any saga, Icelandic, Norwegian, Irish. You can pick up the Eddas, the Kalevala. Those are all canon in our universe. And when Ed's going to start talking about Dublin and how he's portraying Athcliath in the 10th century, it's going to blow your socks off as well because he's done a ton of research. Even the street names are like going back centuries in terms
Oh
of they've
wow.
been there in that place. And the geography, the topology of how that city grew based on the landscape. But hand it to you, Ed, man.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing. Um, every name that you will see on a character in Athcliath is authentic, and we checked that it's dating. It wasn't an Old Norse name that came along after this date, but it's an Old Norse name that is recorded in scholarship and would have been applied to this. It does work with that. Um, Interestingly, if you look at modern day Dublin, almost everything we see here has been obliterated. The pool, which you can sort of vaguely see, which is if you look on our city map, there's a palace at one end, and just outside the walls is a pool. And the pool was where the Vikings could pull their longships in and not have the tide on the Liffey take them back out to sea again. It was where the River Poddle comes in to join the Liffey, and there was a swamp and a huge bay. So that's why they camped. Oh, and the bit that became Athcliath is a ridge right beside the Liffey, which is why the Poddle goes around instead of cutting right through it.
Mm-hmm.
The Poddle runs out from the bottom of that map, but it's trying to get to the Liffey, which is at the top of the map, and the top of the map is actually east. Um, so the Poddle goes around Athcliath. Now, all those street names are authentic, but they've all moved. And I don't mean they've moved on my map. They've moved all around Dublin over and over again as they've rebuilt Dublin because the king or the church at the time when it was powerful enough would just grab land and they'd knock down slums, they'd move people, and they'd build a new street, and they would take a name of a street that they built on top of and apply it to the new street. And they did that over and over and over again. So every name is correct. Although, by the way, we have translated them all
Mm-hmm.
into English. We're not trying to smite you over the head with for one thing, modern day Gaelic has suffered pronunciation changes down the years. So somebody will say, you're pronouncing it wrong. It's not Askliath, it's Arkliath. Well, it is now, but it wasn't then.
Right.
So yeah, we did all that stuff. But anyway, you get 2 books here. One of them is an overview book. And it gives you see the city map behind you there has 96 city blocks. And if you've ever gone somewhere in the world on a big trip, and you've either gone to the library and borrowed a Dorling Kindersley travel book, or you bought one. I say Dorling Kindersley because that particular publisher has this habit of doing these illustrated guidebooks to Rome and Paris and London, where you open 2 facing pages of the book and they've drawn a city block, all the little buildings in the center, and you can actually look up and down the streets and see where you're going. And then all around the edges of the page, there's the Leaning Tower of Pisa was built in, and there's all the little things you can see.
Right.
If you go there as a tourist. Well, we do one book, which is an overview. It's not a tourist guidebook, but it's a light overview of every building in that city block. And then about the southern third of the city, so right behind your head where the palace is, up to right where you moved your head now, there, right where you moved your head, that much of the city will
Can't
get
see
a
my
deep
hand.
Yeah, don't worry about it. That much of the city will get a deep dive. And by deep dive, I mean every building you go to has at least one NPC fully detailed. So the NPC has a dirty secret that you can use to blackmail them or get their cooperation or find out what they're really like. They have a characteristic, and they have a proclivity. And one of them is a one-shot, this guy's a miser. Okay? So the game master, the dungeon master, the Norn, if it's Fate of the Norns, immediately knows, okay, this is what this person is like. And then the other characteristic will tell you what they're interested in, what they're trying to get, what their aims are right now, and what their triggers are.
And it'll tie into the social combat as well. The rules for that, if you want to use it.
Yeah. And every shop you go to has a price list. And if it's an artisan in that shop making herbal remedies or potions or perfumes or weapons, it'll tell you in Fate of the Norns game terms how good they are, how effective they are. If it's an eatery or a tavern or an inn that has a full dining room, you'll get a menu. You'll know exactly what their signature dishes are and drinks and how much they cost. So the guy or gal who's running the game doesn't have to stop and make all this stuff up on the fly. It's given to them. We've done the work, so you don't have to. So you can put your attention to the unfolding adventure and really have fun. In other words, we've done all the Dungeon Master's hours of prep work for you and put it into the you'll know exactly what every building looks like, so you can describe it. And some of the important ones, there'll actually be illustrations of them in this box set. So you can see them.
That'll be just that one section of the map where it's going to be fleshed out, or the entire city map?
The heavy duty flesh out is the southern the southern third of the city. Okay. All of it will have the light overview. You just won't have full menus and full things for the characters. But you'll still have enough that you can walk in and describe to the players exactly what they see, exactly what's going on in this building, and exactly who's they're going to interact with. You just won't have the acres of detail.
Right. So are there districts considered in this? Like other games, is there going to be districts like this is the shopping district, this is the
well,
the rich
yes
people's
and no.
part, or...
Until King Citric came along, there was no urban planning in Aquia. So there's no merchant's quarter, noble's quarter. Everything is pretty much cheek by jowl, which makes for some very interesting, the tannery is next door. Have fun breathing. you know. And that's quite deliberate, and it makes it a lot more interesting. But no, there is no there is an area that is very much defined, and that's the docks. As you can see along the top of this map, there are shipyards at the end farthest from your head.
Mhm.
Okay, the
Yeah.
shipyards are there, the dry docks, right on the edge of where the screen cuts off.
Mhm.
And then there are docks, and then there are these big rows of big buildings. They're the warehouses. And
They
then
go out into the bay or the area there.
yeah, and then
Okay.
right behind you is the palace, which is defined by the
Right.
fact it's got, its own walls,
Got a rampart. Yeah.
subdividing. Yeah, there are city gates, like this is Iron Gate, right underneath the Ragnarok bag there, which will
Mhm.
hold your Futhark runes when you punch them out. That's a
Which
punch
are
out.
the runes or the colored runes right there. That's why I put
Yeah,
this up so y'all could talk about it as well. So.
yeah. There's another city gate right behind you, like the river gate, right by the bottle. Don't worry about moving. There it
Okay.
is. You just see the edge of it. And there's another two off the map in the other end of the city. And aside from that, everything goes together. For instance, in this deep dive third of the city, we
Mhm.
have a big, gorgeous temple to Odin, which has a gold dome. Um, and it's the little round white circle just inside the river gate there. Then, if you look towards the top of the map from it, like right up towards the river, you'll see the colors of the roofs turn and sort of go green. That's
Mhm.
because they're turf roofs. They're grass and dirt roofs, because those are the the cheapest hovels in the city are there.
Do you have your
And
prototype
they're
papers handy there, Ed, to flash to our viewers?
oh yeah, okay, I will do that.
Because he made the artist really work.
Oh yeah.
Those roofs are not haphazardly colored. Ed had strict
Yeah.
instructions on what each material was for every roof.
See, this is a thatch roof. That's a board roof which
Board
goes down.
roof. Yeah.
The TU is a turf roof.
Uh huh.
Um, Up from that, there
Oh,
are
nice.
cedar shake roofs. Then above that are tile roofs. There's lots of tile roofs with the new buildings. And
Mhm.
above that is slate roofs. And if you're really rich, as in the castle walls, it's stone.
Stone.
Okay, for your roof. And everything makes sense. And everything worked out that it's correct architecturally, but it's also our fantasy version
Mhm.
of Athcliath. So many of these houses are haunted by the Fae, and some of the Fae are nice, and some of the Fae are not
Not
nice. And some of the Fae will be really nice to you as long as you're nice to them and don't burn their house down, and um, don't mistreat the Hibernians, the Irish that they're used to.
So you said Fae. Let me interrupt you for a second. So are we looking at the? I haven't looked at the creature list and stuff yet. Are we looking at creatures or quote unquote monsters that are more in line with mythos, or are we looking at more ones that were made up? Other words, well, this sounds cool. We're going to make this creature up right here. We're going to fall more with the brownies and the pixies and the little things, leprechauns and things you would normally find in that area of the world in mythology. Is that going to be found here as well, or is it going to be mostly things that you decided, let's make up a, gibbering mouther or something like that?
No, most of them are already established in the game. We did a book before this called
Right.
Creatures of Fairy Tale and Myth.
Mm-hmm. I have it.
Yeah, yeah. So most of these are the critters that you would have found in the mythology of this area of the world at this time. Now, that doesn't mean and I've been thinking in the back of my mind as we go on making the city come alive, um, there could be place spirits in in this city,
Mm-hmm.
fae that become corrupted and twisted by what's going on in this city, because everybody from all over the world who's got money is rushing here
Right.
because the world is darkening. We're in Fimbulwinter. The crops are failing because there's no sun in the sky. So everybody's rushing here to buy the grain and be able to go on feeding yourselves and they're bringing all their influences with them. And who knows what's stowing away aboard, various ships. So they're
Exactly.
quite
It's a
intriguing.
mercantile hub. So it
Yeah,
opens up the door to not just the fairy tales from, let's say, the British Isles, but the fairy tale creatures from all around the world. Because the Vikings actually traveled all the way down to the Mediterranean basin, all the way to Persia, down the Volga trade routes, down to Constantinople. So you can imagine the types of things that could stow away invisibly on the ships and come back to Athcliath from all of these places. And
Mm-hmm.
the other really interesting thing is it's the setting is also, and it's optional. The players can play in the official setting. It is Ragnarok. It is the end of the world. So it's too late to
Right.
stop the apocalypse. But Ragnarok does not unfold in one afternoon. It unfolds over 4 ages. And the first age, the sun and moon are devoured by two celestial wolves. It is Fimbulwinter.
Mm-hmm.
And the dwarves are said to be working on a second sun because Fimbulwinter is only said to last 3 years. So someone is building another sun that's going to be cast up into the firmament. So perhaps it is being built here in Athcliath by there is a guild of Dvergar and Knockers, and they do have gateways to the other 9 worlds upon Yggdrasil. They're bringing in realm wars from these other worlds. So there is the mythic side to it as well. And one of the things that we wanted to do in this box set is to give the GM sliders. So you can end up
Mm-hmm.
making this low fantasy, high fantasy to whatever level you want. You can set the time in the 10th century. You can go prior to Ragnarok if you want to. You can go high fantasy. You can have like the Morrigan walk in the streets of Athcliath if you
Oh,
wanted to.
nice.
It's
Yeah.
it's your choice, right? So we don't plan to like prescribe that this is the only way you can play the city. This is really like a toolkit we want to be able to give players and their GMs, and you use it how you see best at your game table.
Mm-hmm. That's terrific. And there's some people asking questions actually on YouTube. I put one in the chat there if you want to. I guess just real quick, he's really curious if the fate of the Norns. This is Lucas. The fate of the Norns is a concept similar to historical Norse Gale hybrid.
Yep. So Fate of the Norns, the whole world is pretty much set in the 10th century, and Fate of the Norns Ragnarok, that setting, is set during the apocalypse. So we're around 930 AD, where after King
Mm-hmm.
Harald Fairhair dies. So when he dies, pretty much all of the Kingdom of Norway splinters into a whole bunch of warring factions, because King Harald Fairhair in history was a very successful king, had ladies, highborn and lowborn, all the way up and down the Norwegian coast, and he never left clear lines of succession. So in history,
Right.
when he dies, all of his children start fighting for the throne. And we thought this is the perfect time to start Ragnarok. So as he draws his last breath is when Ragnarok begins in the Fate of the Norns universe. And so the Fate of the Norns universe is not simply contained to just Scandinavia. It is we just moved into the Celtic kingdoms recently with our last 2 Kickstarters. We already have manuscripts working with Europe all the way down to the Mediterranean basin.
Oh,
We've
nice.
already got other manuscripts that are working in the New World, so for the expansion of them exploring North America. And we've got some proposals from some guest authors that are pitching us ideas for Russia and beyond, going further east. So there are no fixed bounds in terms of the Fate of the Norns universe. But right now, we're pretty much in Celtic and Germanic and
Mm-hmm.
Scandinavian kingdoms. That's where all of our source material lies.
So the map that you have is the city map that was of what was it, Akliath?
Athcliath, which is Dublin.
Athliath,
Yeah.
Dublin, right? How soon will other maps be available for growing out the world? In other words, are we gonna take? I mean, since you're basing this pretty much in the real world, correct?
Yep.
And the map wise, so by taking, I mean, you'll have the boundaries of what Scotland is, or wherever you're going with it, and then but then adding in your own mystical places or what it looked like 1,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago. Are we expecting those in the expansion later on in the couple of years or 6 months or anything like that?
So one of the things that Ed and I are committing to is to make this city evergreen. So what we want to do is
Mm-hmm.
start a Patreon after this Kickstarter ends, invite everyone from the Kickstarter to join, and basically continue adding content for Athcliath. So Athcliath is going to continue growing, going to keep evolving, going to keep getting updates, and hopefully it's going to be reciprocal. Like we're going to feed off the fans. The fans are going to tell us what kind of adventures they're having. And when Ed and I started this project, when we started talking about it, we had a couple of cities that we could have tackled in the Fate of the Norns universe. Aldsvalsnes is another huge metropolis in Sweden and Norway. There's places in Jutland. There's places in the Baltic Sea that we could have chosen as cities that we could have tackled. The reason we chose this one was it was really just the perfect timing of us moving into the Celtic kingdoms, and this was just a great cross section with the new books coming out. But nothing precludes us from going into the other ones. But basically, I think it really comes down to just fan demand. So, if we're killing it and crushing it on this Kickstarter, it tells us that you guys want to see more of these city box sets, then we'll make more. It comes down to you guys, the fans. So you guys have to tell us.
Right. No, that's fantastic.
And there's one thing I should say here, and that's if you don't want to do historical, if you've got your own fantasy campaign already going, and you're making up, your own map with that doesn't look anything like the real world, and you just need a complete detailed fantasy city, we're giving it to you. It can, you just plop it down and use it. Now, if there's anything you don't like, change it. You have basically ancient Gaelic names, and they are not yet starting to use family names. They still have matronyms and patronyms. So you're either son of, or daughter of, or or you're named for something like Split Nose or Big Farts or whatever it is. Oh yes, and there were a lot of them. And the same with the Norse. That's how they name themselves. So I could see us down the road in Patreon saying, okay, here's a bunch of fantasy names, generic fantasy names, for you to pick from if you just want to rename the characters as you burst into their shop.
Right.
You don't have to, and if you want to start Fate of the Norns, Andrew has cunningly, in that one right above your head that says Athcliath Game Rule Book, you've got enough to run Fate of the Norns there.
Yep.
Right.
You don't have to buy the game books. But if you love this and want to go and follow the journey as we map the world, we'll do that too. And one of the things we'll definitely be doing in years to come as we evergreen the city is, if I'm only giving you the bottom third, the southern third, in full detail, I got to give you the rest of it in deep dive.
Yep. The rest of the tour guide books.
Right. Well, that'll be what it is, like a kind of, to use a from Forgotten Realms, like a Volo's guide.
Yeah, you bet.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but call it Blood Nuts Guide.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. We want this to be really useful to you. So yeah, what it comes down to is, what can we do that you want at your gaming table?
Yeah, and we started this with the Kickstarter immediately. We started posting updates every single day, and every single day we invite you to post in comments after we posted our update. Ask us, tell us, what do you want to know more of?
Right.
Tell us what you want in the next update, and we will dig into our vaults and pull out whatever you want, and we will post about it, because we're ready to post every single day about this project.
And we just need you all to buy it, so we can be rich beyond the dreams of avarice.
There you go.
Maybe have enough money to print it. One of the two.
Well, the stretch goals are pretty exciting. We should get into the stretch goals too.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, I couldn't get them to work on my computer, but I was going to bring up the stretch goals on there. So if you want to do that now, that's perfect, because I can follow along. I think I have a picture of it. So
yeah, absolutely. So we've got a bunch of amazing talent that's signed up. As soon as they found out about the project that we're working on, they were pretty excited. So they said, how can we help besides just spreading the word about the project? So the very first stretch goal is the usual one that we put, which is anyone that's got print books, you get the PDFs for free, which is usually our first stretch goal, which is right after we fund. Then after that, we have Jay Sonia, who's done books for 5e and Pathfinder. So he's done several, what are they called? Splat books and world books. He's done Bloodlines and Black Magic. He's going to be doing an adventure for Athcliath. Brian Neff is the next designer. He's a board game designer, but he's also worked in the RPG space. He works for, he's a hired gun right now, but he's worked for Restoration Games, which they're like Fireball Island and Dark Tower. They brought like a lot of the old games back. He's going to be doing an adventure as well. Jason Anarchy, he does Jason Anarchy Games, the Drinking Quest line of games. So you can imagine the theme behind his adventure that he's going to be contributing. Alex Camera runs Gamehole Con, and he has started publishing his own books. I don't know how this man finds the time to do everything that he does,
and
but
to
he
be a
is.
lawyer.
Yes, and he
Yes,
also said,
yeah.
and I said, I don't know how you find the time, but would you be interested in writing? And he said yes before I could finish the sentence. Um, and then Phil Brucato, he's one of the alums from White Wolf. He's one of the main designers and authors behind Mage, The Awakening. So he is signed up also for an adventure. Ed Burrell, he's also done a bunch of stuff for Morkborg, the RPG. He's done his own set of adventure cards for any kind of RPG as well. He's a cartographer. And so now his adventure, I'm going to be pinning him down. He's going to have to do a nice little map with his adventure. Um, then Michelle Franklin, she has got another novel ready for you if we reach the stretch goal. Then Ben McFarland, he has done a bunch of stuff for Pathfinder and I think 5e as well, but I know most of his stuff has been Pathfinder, so he's going to be doing an adventure as well. I also have a secret bonus book that I will not be revealing until we hit that stretch goal. Um, then we have Professor Dungeon Master, from Dungeon Craft, the YouTube channel. So he's published, I think, one or two books, and I love the way he um, dissects game mechanics and the dynamic of players around a table. And so he and I were talking a lot, and we had him up on our fireside chat, and we've got him roped in for an adventure as well. Then we've also got Luke Gygax for another adventure as well. So he's the man behind GaryCon, and he has started publishing his own adventures and books as well. And then right after that, we have Ed Greenwood with a mysterious adventure deck. Ed, what's that all about?
Mm-hmm.
So picture of deck of playing cards. And if you are trying to do an adventure on the fly or you don't have one ready, you pick a card and it says something like the Lost Horde. And then it says you will need to go to a tavern and find a skald who knows about, and then a shop where you can buy a harp, and you will have some choices in this as to what you choose across the city. So it also provides a sort of let's go on a treasure hunt across the city. And to complete the adventure, you will have to rub shoulders with certain sorts of characters. Um, and that will give the Norn, the game master, a chance to roll out all sorts of things and play with them, and will give the players a chance to see a part of the city that they may not have seen before or see it in a new way. In the same way that if you live in a city, you have the place you live, you have where you go to work, you have where you normally shop or bank, and there are entire bits of your own city that you may never have been to. I mean, you may know that there's a zoo over there or a stadium over there, but you never go to them. Well, these sort of adventures. So if you're ever stuck for an adventure, or if the game master wants to spice up an adventure that is unfolding, like if the player characters, the dwellers, are in the middle of trying to do something in the city, well, we've got to find Vergesa. We got to ask her this thing. And I know she's in the city. I mean, that hair, everybody, yeah, okay. But they're hunting for her. And then suddenly this adventure from the deck that you've drawn crashes in on top of you. And all the dwellers are looking at each other and saying, okay, how come there are 6 bearded men in matching red codpieces and tutus dancing in front of this thing and attacking people all at once? What's going on? And of course, the other thing is, these adventure decks is a great way to get you involved in the cabals of the city. Which think of them as factions from D&D, but small scale. The factions of D&D are these large power players with banners and stuff like this. Cabals are really secret and quite small, but occasionally they do something. Like they want the Norse gone from the city, or they want to awaken some of the old gods and bring them back, or something like that. Whatever it is that a particular cabal is doing, they may erupt and try it in one of these adventures that's on a card.
Right.
So you can, that's the thing. You can always, and if you really want to drive people nuts, or it's your last big play session before Christmas and everybody's together for a day and a half, and they're going to eat way too much food and drink too much drink and have a big adventure, you pull 3 cards and you mash them up, and all these adventures crash into each other in the middle of the city. I mean, there are endless ways of, or you can just sit alone without your players, if you're the Norn, if you're the GM, and shuffle through the adventure deck, reading it, going, "Oh, that's cool." And then you go and pick up either the deep dive book or the overview book, and you read up on that building, and you go, "Oh, so they got vats of pickles there. What would happen to somebody if they got dropped in a vat of pickles?
How long would it take them to get pickled, right?
Yeah. What if they drown in the vat of pickles? So you can learn the city that way for fun. It's all fun.
Inspiration.
That's what we do here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
Inspiration. Yeah.
That's right. So how many books total are we looking at? I was counting. It looks like 9 total, right?
You're looking at 9 before stretch goals. We're adding Michelle's book 10, my book 11, and then we're adding. We didn't finish the rollout of stretch goals. I don't know if you got the latest infographic there, but after Ed's deck of cards, we have the city map. Instead of being on paper, we actually printed on an old linen tapestry. So you actually get it in cloth instead of folded paper. And then after that, you get the 5e specific bonus book. So instead of having to do we do all the heavy lifting in terms of, making sure that you can map all the stuff to any role-playing game system. But if you really are just like, I need 0 prep, I don't even have the brain cells to, like, I'm too tired after work to even do the mapping of, like, your system agnostic stat block to 5e, we're going to come up with a book that's going to have it all spelled out for you. So you just keep that little booklet in the box there with you, you're good to go. And after the 5e one, we've got the Powered by the Apocalypse one, and then after that one, we've got the Pathfinder one. So in all, I mean that you're looking at 5 more books. So 9. You're 15? Looking at 14 books.
14 books, yeah.
Yeah, 14 books. You're looking at, what is it, like 9 adventures that are going to get added. And you're getting free PDFs. You're getting an adventure deck. So there's a ton of stuff in stretch goals. Hopefully we can get to.
So we weren't joking when we said, make sure you have a strong bookshelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you were right. Plus, you get the runes that behind me over here.
Yep.
These here. Is there any plan on doing actual plastic or molded runes at some point?
So if we do break past those 3 system-specific books, we would upgrade those into wood or stainless steel, which we already have manufacturing runs of, that we would be able to do the upgrades for. But that means we would need to break into, I think, we'd be in the late 30,000s, maybe early 40,000s of this Kickstarter.
So because 25, I think, is the breakthrough for the linen map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys would need to spread the word far and wide tonight.
Well, we're going to spread it because you have 5 days left or on the Kickstarter?
Yeah,
yep, absolutely.
About right.
Yep.
Yeah.
About 5 days left, yeah. So, no, absolutely. What else, guys? You got a lot of stuff here.
Well, questions from the audience we could field as well. If you've got
I was kind of throwing those in there. One of them had a question about the turf roof. Now, you're talking about like the ones that have grass on there that you can actually grow things?
Yep, you can actually grow things. I would recommend you not grow two things: things that pigeons and seagulls and doves would like to eat, and things that your neighbors would like to steal.
Or how about nothing with deep immersive roots?
Yes. Well, no.
Make
You
it
want
three.
you want some things with deep roots because they anchor the mat. You see,
Yeah.
this
Right.
starts.
You don't want your
with
roof to fly off.
Yeah,
No, yeah, but you don't want
yeah,
to wake up and get tickled by roots coming down at you
yeah,
too.
yeah. You start with wattles, which are like, you just take these sticks, thin
Mhm.
sticks, and weave them together in a crosshatch,
Right,
and
right.
then you weave vines and so on, and then you put the dirt on top of that with the grass, and you water it and all the rest of it, and then you if it doesn't die in the first little while, particularly if you're near the Liffey, there are
Mhm.
fogs all the time, mists and fogs. Every time the temperature differential between the tidal, the cold, the Liffey's a tidal river. So if you get cold ocean water coming up, the air above it's going to be warmer, and you're usually
Right.
going to have a fog right there. So your roof is getting watered all the time.
Right, right. So you're not talking about just a thatch roof. You're talking about a living roof then.
Yeah, there are thatch roofs
Right.
that's a different thing. But yeah, this is a living roof. And again, don't plant the wrong thing. But other than that, and you're right, these things can leak. And you're right, they can be unpleasant. That's why it's the sort of roof that only the poorest people have
Mhm.
on their homes. Because it's not the most desirable sort of roof, but it's the one that you can literally make yourself if you can get out beyond the city walls and walk out for a day. You can patch your roof by what you can pick up for free.
Right.
Um, for free, as in nobody's going to stop you. If you go into the middle of a farmer's field, yeah, he's going to stop
He's
you.
gonna stop you. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you just go by the roadside, nobody's going to stop you. What we don't yet have that concept of that's mine, that's my land.
Right.
You know,
Right. So what about because I haven't read through a lot of the stuff yet, but what about magic? What kind of? Well, I mean, yeah, we've been talking about the maps and the books and the adventures and the stories, which are absolutely incredible. But what about gameplay, magic wise?
So I can go over the schools of magic that we've got in the world, and then I can go into the new low fantasy schools of magic that we're adding with the historical archetypes in the two
Mhm.
booklets. Actually, let me start with the low ones first. So we wanted to tone things down to be able to have like a more historical feel, so people can throw the slider down as low as they want. And so we're adding herbalism and alchemy as a very low level magic that you
Mhm.
can have in the game at the very lowest level. Now, if you want to go up now into magic and spells, there are. Right, let's just start listing them off. So you've got the Scythe Kona. Let's begin with her. She deals in the unseen world of spirits. So she deals with the spirits that are lost souls. They have not gone up to Valhalla. They have not been claimed by Hell into Niflheim. Basically, these are spirits that either have been cursed or have some unresolved business in the land of the living, like some sort of debt they have not paid, and they
Mhm.
died, and they have to stay here. So she can harness those spirits to generate her magical energy. So that is called scythe magic. And I think that's where George Lucas got the Sith in terms of
You think?
for
Oh,
yeah
nice.
for
Yeah.
Star Wars. Then after that you have spell songs. So this is what the Skalds do. The Viking Skalds. Now don't picture D&D Skalds where they play their little mandolin and everyone gets +1 to hit. To give you an idea of a Skald's spell song, one of them is called the Hand of Tyr. And as he sings this, a third ghostly hand appears, so he can triple wield and run into battle, triple wielding, or wielding those really rare three-handed weapons. Um, then you've got the Galder, which deals with rune magic, and this is where you can either inscribe runes into items to have like a persistent effect, or just trace the rune in the air for a very quick effect. That is Galder magic, rune magic. Then we go to Verwandlung. Verwandlung is the magic of the woods. This is what druids use. So there's a hierarchy of wood in the woods, and every single type of wood has a type of magic that's associated with it. And so the druids, by crafting wands and staves from the different types of wood, can actually harness that type of magic. And the other magic they can do is bring that type of essence from the land called alkas, where they can basically enchant areas of land and imbue them with that magical energy. Then you have what the Shiragengan call light and dark magic. So this is what the Leos and Svardalfar use. So this is the playing on the light and dark, and so they can play with shadows and light and change the way their powers work. So this is not particularly spells, more their maneuvers and abilities change depending on the lighting. What else am I missing here? Missing some more for sure. Oh, there's the Orlog. So now we're going to the Lords of the Ash. So when the gods and the giants realized that they were in trouble was when Nidhogg came into play. Nidhogg is the world-devouring dragon. So if anyone knows a little bit about Norse mythology, it's the dragon that gnaws at the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree.
Mm-hmm.
And it is one of the Alsvarter, which is one of the primordial beings before the gods were born, before the ice giants were begat. This thing is before time itself. And when they had to deal with him, the best outcome was them just imprisoning him. And when they imprisoned him, and it was in Vergelmir, the same place they imprisoned Loki, they had to give up a lot in their battle with him. And what he managed to do was corrupt void magic. Void magic is the Gnungagap. Gnungagap in Old Norse means void. And that is the magic that the gods use to create mankind, create the sky, the earth, water, air, everything. And so when he corrupted it, his goal was, if that magic ever gets used, his brethren are going to be called into this world from the other side. And so the gods and the giants said, well, we can't use void magic anymore because this is just too dangerous. We can't defeat one of him. If we keep using this magic, we're going to bring in more of this Alsvarter, and we're going to be in deep shit. So what happens? Of course, humanity says, hey, we know better than the gods and the giants. So there's these Orlogs, which is an archetype of humans, that decide, hey, we're going to mess with void magic. So these are the mad mages, called the Orlogs, that actually discover void magic as it was dropped by the mead of poetry and the wisdom of Odin, because Odin just loves to play with dangerous things and impart it onto humanity for his own machinations. And so the Orlogs are the ones that play with void magic. And then you've got the missionaries that play with the miracles, which are the white gods' miracles. And who else am I? Am I missing anything, Ed? I think I've probably done the roundabout of all the magic systems.
I think you have. I think you've got all the biggies anyway.
I think I've got all the biggies.
It's a big. What about the? Are there any additions to the classic Norse pantheon? That's a question here from Brian Slowsec.
So we have the Vanir as well. If you're asking how much of the Eddas are we covering, so we've got all of the gods and goddesses of the Vanirs that are included. We've got all of the Aesir. We also are including the Celtic, the Tuatha Danann, the Firbolg, and some of the Fomorians as well. So from the Levorgabla, the Book of Invasions. Unless there's something I'm missing in the question.
No, is there anything new that you've come up? Is there something like?
We created? Yes.
Have you created a new god or area that isn't covered in Norse mythology?
Yeah, we do have some of our own. Yeah, we have included. So for the fire giants, the Muspelli Jotuns, there wasn't a whole lot. So we ended up creating several, like Bagist. Bagist is one of our own creations, our own IP in the universe. And so he's like a storm Jotun. So he's basically the antithesis of Thor. So everyone fears that if he and Thor end up meeting, they're going to annihilate like a plane of existence.
Right.
So there are some creations, absolutely, yes, that we've added where mythology kind of was a little bit too small for a game world that needs to be a little bit more complete and well-rounded. Yeah, we filled in some of the gaps, absolutely.
Okay, and what about areas like you would see like the Jotunheim in Valhalla. Are these still concepts in the game that
Absolutely.
okay, that scare? I'm going to guess most common folk that are going to be scared to death of this stuff.
Yeah. So what happens is we have afterlife mechanics in Fate of the Norns. So there's a concept of player level and character level. So most RPGers are familiar with character level, right? Your character goes up in level. But in Fate of the Norns, we also have player level. And so that ties into our afterlife mechanics. So one of the things that I've learned as playing D&D and RPGs for decades is I never remember the safe player. I remember the crazy players that do stuff that's like super memorable.
Right.
Like, why are we fighting this ancient blue dragon? I want to ride that thing. That's what I remember, right? So I wanted us to design a system that coaxes out that heroic play that we're going to remember for decades going on, right? So the way it works in Fate of the Norns is when your character dies, and your character will eventually die, there's a chance that your character is going to go up into the heavens and you as a player will level up. And the way that works is this. When you die, you're going to sit at your table quietly, and hopefully the rest of your team has time to give you a proper funeral pyre, and everyone's going to pour a drink, raise their glass, and recount your character's epic deed. And for every epic deed that they recount, the GM agrees is a valid epic deed, you get to draw a rune from your bag and put it on the table.
Oh, no.
And this is going around the table, and everyone's like, oh yeah, remember when Bjorn jumped off the roof of the mead hall onto the polar bear's back and ran it through the army of Draugr that let all of the orphans run out of the back of the burning building and save the village. And so you get to draw another rune and another rune and another rune. And then eventually you get to the point where you've run out of, like, this is your epic deeds are all on the table. The GM's then going to reach into a different bag of runes, full of runes, pull out one rune. And if there's a symbol match, you hear the songs of the Valkyries as they descend from the heavens, pick your character up and bring him up into the heavens, and you level up as a player. Now you're level 1, which means now next time you make a character, and any future time you make a character, new options open up to you as you go through character creation.
Right.
And the higher level you are, more of these options open up to you. And these options are party friendly, so everyone wants you to get into the heavens. And eventually, when you get to level 5, you get to grab one of your old characters from Valhalla, or Glasisvalir, or Rand's Hull, or Freya's Hull, Folkvangar, and you get Freya coming to you going, I am Heriar, I have a mission for you back in the land of the living. And you grab that character, retool them, and they're back in the game.
And they're back in the game again.
Yeah.
But they're fully alive, right?
Yeah. Well,
I mean, they're not going to do their mission and then they go back.
They basically have an immortal template that's applied to them, and the way we work it out is to make it accessible with the mortal characters. There is a death trauma you have to work out, and so it's kind of a handicap to make up for the bonuses that you make up from your immortal template that gives you extra powers. So you're still feeling like there's vulnerabilities on you, but you also feel this just untapped potential that's there that you're working off slowly as you're working through your trauma.
Right. I like the idea that you want to coax out these epic things in the players because whenever I think of Viking or Nordic or this whole Celtic thing, everything in my mind is epic. It's Lothgar, was it the Lothgar from the Viking show? Lothbrok. I'm sorry,
Ragnar Lothbrok. Yeah,
Ragnar Lothbrok. Yeah,
shaggy breeches.
Everything is. Do what?
Shaggy breeches. That's what.
Breeches,
what Lothbrok means. Got hairy legs.
I didn't know that. But that's what I think of when I have these characters in my head. That's nice that the game is gonna make people or help draw that out in people in the game mechanics. I like that.
Yeah, we didn't want it to just be flavor. It was really like a mission statement to build it into the mechanics and make that like a core mission statement that we want you to play memorably. And when you die, we want to be able to have the mechanics take the sting off of your death. So like it's the game that, after you die at a convention, you hear cheering at a table. And then people are like, what? Why is everyone cheering? Did someone roll a natural 20? We're like, no, the guy died, but he made it to Valhalla.
Well, that's the whole thing. If you think about it, it's a good death. As long as you have a good death in battle, it's no death is bad. And I love that. Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, you should check out Creatures of Fairy Tale and Myth, the previous book, because
Yes.
I know I wrote the Valkyrie story in there, and there's a story of the Valkyries coming for somebody who died
Oh, is
well.
there really?
Oh yeah. This is the
I will
fun
have
of
to
this
read
game.
it. I'm gonna have to read it. You're gonna have to explain to my wife why I'm buying another Kickstarter, right?
That's okay. That's okay. I don't mind if she beats me. It's for a good cause.
It's for a good
A
cause.
spanking
Okay.
is coming.
Yeah.
Spanking is coming.
Excuse me,
Boom.
a doctor's spanking.
A doctor spanking.
Yes, we wish to draw the veil of decency over this. This is a
Yes.
medical procedure.
It just means that she has a
course,
rectal
of
thermometer.
course.
That's all.
That's right. Yeah, and it's vitally necessary for Jeff to get another cool game.
It
And
is.
what is life for? Collecting cool games.
That's right. I mean, we just finished building our game room next door to
Oh,
right
nice.
across the wall from where I am. Since our kids are moved out, we're empty nesters. Now we took their room and turned it into a game room. Bought
Oh,
got a table. We have a skee ball machine. We've got hopefully soon going to be some pinball machines. But yeah, we got it set up for gaming. And our big game that we always play right now is Lords of Waterdeep. But this
good board game.
this sounds epic right here, because I have games I bought. I've got the Dragon Heist sitting over here on the floor. I've never opened the box.
It's a very easy game to learn, because
Yeah.
one of our mission statements making the game was it has to be an easy game to teach and a fun game to teach, because we're going to have to teach it 1,000 times or
Right,
10,000
right.
times, right? So the runes allowed us to make a game that has multiple levels of crunch. And this is something I was explaining the other night when we were on a stream. I was saying that most RPGs, when you buy it for the IP, right? You're like, I love Star Wars, so I'll buy the Star Wars RPG. I love Firefly, I'll get it for the Firefly RPG. But when you get the mechanics that come with the RPG, they're stuck in one level of crunch, right? The crunch is being like the mechanical heaviness and the amount of math that you have to deal with. But realistically speaking, if you played for several decades, you know that everyone around a table has a different tolerance for the crunch, right? Some people are like, I'd rather play Fate and just tell a story. And some people are like, I'd rather play Rollmaster and crunch some numbers. Some people are like, I want to do Shadowrun and remember lots of rules. And then there's that one person that says, I want to spend days making my character. Let's play Dangerous Journeys. So you've got everyone that has a different threshold, right? But every RPG, unfortunately, has one level of crunch. So we wanted to make one that has 3 levels of crunch. Everyone at the table could play at the level they enjoy, and the runes tie it together in real time. So there's no frustration at the table. And so this also allowed us to teach the game in a matter of like minutes at a convention. So we can say, you know what? Describe what you want to do to someone who's never played an RPG. Like we say, okay, here's your bag of runes. This is like your life total. All the symbols are tied to your spells and abilities. And on your turn, you get to draw 3 runes, because that's how your character was built. She draws 3 runes, and then she goes, now what do I do? Let's go, describe what you want to do. And for every verb you use, it's going to cost you 1 rune. She goes, that's it? And I'm like, yep. And you're playing the game. She goes, okay, I flip the table at the assassin in front of me. Great, play a rune. I draw my swords. Great, you drew your swords. I stab him? Yes, perfect. Play the 3rd rune, you stab him. And so the person's playing the game already. At the lowest level of crunch, it's pure narrative. And then from there, you move up. You start reading the symbols. And the symbols are tied to your spells and your abilities. And then you move up even further. If you're a min-maxer, then you start like chaining your runes together into one big rune chain, where certain runes trigger and change the way your power works, adding meta effects. And so all of this can be played at the same time. So it was just a whole bunch of like a laundry list of things that we wanted to optimize around a game table, and
it's incredible.
it allowed us to do that.
That's incredible. Are there any dice rolling in this game?
Vikings don't ask for permission.
Do what?
Vikings don't ask for permission.
Don't ask permission, they just do. There you go. I'm going to stab you, and you're going to feel my sword.
It's an action-reaction paradigm. So what happens is, when let's say that girl was asking, like, can I stab him? I go, yeah, just play a rune. And she goes, okay, now what happens? I said, well, add up your damage. So she says, okay, so it says 6. Perfect. Now the assassin has 6 damage coming in his way. Now we look at his protection factor. It says 2. Okay, so now the 6 got reduced to 4. Now the assassin's got certain actions. He's got his own runes. Now does he plan on parrying maybe some of that damage? Maybe he wants to dodge that damage, or maybe he wants to take all that 4 damage, save his actions for his counterattack. So it becomes more about interesting decisions rather than did the dice let me do it, and that's the paradigm of the game. That's how it plays differently than traditional game. And
I like that. I like that because it takes away that effect of, everybody's had the game they played in where they're doing heroic things, and every time you roll a 2 or a 3, and when it's your turn, and then you're screwed out of your turn to do this, and the next guy rolls 21.
Even worse, everybody roll for initiative, and
Right.
then all night long you're last, which means it's just like being in a sudden death football game. Your team wins the toss, gets the ball, marches down the field, and the game is over, and you never got a chance.
Right.
And I've been in D&D games where it felt like that, and it's like, oh my God, surely one of us 18 heavily armed people crowded into this room would have done something.
Somebody had to get stabbed. Somebody had to get hit.
Yeah. And then somebody says, well, remember, it's D&D. It's not a simulation. Okay, true. But if we're going to use that argument, then surely we could come up with a better system in the first place.
Yep.
That would be more fun at the table, particularly for novices who haven't memorized the rule book. So it's their first time around, and they feel a little intimidated. All these people are laughing and talking. They've obviously played together before. What do I do? And at the same time, it would be really nice where it wasn't dictated by stuff. It was dictated by your choices.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
This is what attracted me so much, because what got me hooked initially was the gorgeous art in everything that Andrew does.
Oh, absolutely.
Everything he puts out, I've got to see this. I want to see more of it. And then the moment Andrew's telling you about how to play, you're going, where has this been all my life?
Exactly. No, this is terrific because it plays out more like a novel, and it sounds like, where the actions you're going to do are not judged by the roll of a die. You're able to do these actions, and it depends on how they counter to you, which sounds much better in combat. Because it makes no sense if I'm really fighting somebody with a sword and I trip over my cat and I fall on my sword, or I fall and stab my friend next to me. That doesn't make any sense, But this does, because you're actually fighting and the other person's reacting at the same time. I like that.
And in a city like this, you could have people who are physical weaklings. People who are really young or really old, or have had a disease or are wounded, and they know that. And they're going to be trying to avoid out combat situations, but the social combat is there in the game. They're going to be trying to get what they want out of people without fighting.
Yeah, and social combat is interesting because we did not want, like Ed and I talked about, we want murder hobos running through Athgoliath and just causing fires and leaving trails of bodies, right? And we both looked at each other and we said, no, we don't want this in our city, right? Because otherwise, okay, the city's done, it's burnt to the ground, and then our players are writing to us, when's Athgoliath 2 getting built? Because we burnt the first one to the ground. So
where's the map of that town over here? We got to go over there now.
Yeah. So we said we want players to have a lot of crunchy fun, roll dice, play runes, have this back and forth, use some powers, some skills, some talents. Have multi-step resolution without having to fall back onto violent combat. So this is why we introduced social combat that would allow you to have this multi-step, multifaceted, use some cool maneuvers and powers, learn some dirty secrets, leverage those dirty secrets, play towards someone's proclivity to get them to do something, to learn something about someone else, to then go see that someone else, to use that against that, as a multi-step system that scratches the itch for that player. It's kind of normally sitting at the table going, when's the fight coming? Because I'm sick of role-playing. I just want to roll some dice. Well, that social combat's going to be that rolling the dice, drawing the runes, because it's going to have that crunch to it. It's not going to be that one die roll that resolves everything. and we're going to give you all of those like nuts and bolts and meaty stuff that you can bolt onto your character, even if you're playing a system that doesn't offer that to you. That's what one of the books is going to have. That you can put it onto whatever system that might be combat centric and doesn't have those other things. So that's going to be there. And the other thing Ed and I discussed was, do we want this to be a starting point for people that have never played a role playing game before? And I think both of us were emphatically like nodding. We said, let's make sure that everything that's in this box set can get someone walk into a store and say, I've never played a role playing game. Store owner, what do you recommend? And they can take the Athcliath box and go, this is what I would recommend you start with.
Right. No,
and it also means
perfect.
if that starting game happens to be your minister or your disapproving aunt or your grandparents, and they don't want to think about their fair-haired little boy or girl disemboweling orcs with gusto and eating the intestines. They're not into the. You can actually set up a scenario that is really interesting, that can have real conflict, but no violence.
Yeah.
And it can be fascinating to play. It can be and again, that adventure deck, there will be some in there that you can get through that adventure without drawing a weapon, because there are some times when you don't want to do that.
No, absolutely. And because it sounds like you can do this you could do an intrigue game. You can do,
sure.
Or it could be like a murder mystery where somebody was killed and they're, that kind of thing. And you happened to be in a tavern that night when some guy came running in saying, hide me, and kind of thing. So no, I really love it. I really love it. So, but also you're going to have now for the characters or these people you create, are there going to be standard classes like a bard, cleric, magic user, that kind of thing, or are there going to be something a little bit different?
So
yes,
tomorrow's update is going to give you a list of what you could play as historic archetypes. The closest thing that I would say to your choices would be something like Warhammer Fantasy. So if you've ever played Warhammer Fantasy, just all those medieval jobs that you can do in a medieval town, those are your types of jobs that you can do. Everything from like a smuggler to a merchant, from a jailer to a bounty hunter, from a woodsman to a fence, all of these kinds of professions. And you can jump from profession to profession because we're going to have a very, very elaborate life path system that roots you in the city. So it's really about your experiences in the city. What were your professions before this profession? If you wanted to be older and say, I started out being a woodsman as a teenager, but then I migrated to becoming a herbalist afterwards. I went into an apprenticeship with, this hot lady that, caught my eye and lived in the forest, and I apprenticed under her, brewing all kinds of naughty concoctions. Yes, and so this is the kind of like very open-ended. It's really going to be story-driven character creation rather than I need these stats, I need this class, I need this race. It's going to be, tell me a story about your character, and then this is going to get bolted onto the infrastructure that is this city. So these were your occupations. This is where you lived. These are the people you knew. These are the skills and talents you learned, and so on and so forth.
So this is going to be for most people, and one of the things you rue when you hear it at a convention is, let me tell you about my character. So they had this you had this elaborate 5-page backstory, and that's just for the last week. So so this kind of encourages that actually to give more flavor to the game, because you're more. It sounds like you're getting more into the character than you are just doing stats. Okay.
Exactly.
And what about people who enjoy that part? Is there something for them in the game that enjoy the statting out, they're making their tank and then having to do max damage and this kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Because things like social combat, you're definitely going to want to have those high charismas, the high comeliness. You're going to want to be able to get gear that, let's say, would make you look appealing in a certain social situation. Same thing if you were a bounty hunter. You're going to want to have that very high melee or archery skill. You're going to want to be able to have that tracking. You're going to want to have that verbal manipulation, or that sense motive skill to be able to determine that. So there's definitely, you can get down to the nuts and bolts and say, these are the little components that I need to sink my points into and put my numbers into to be successful at what I want to do in this city. But yeah, you can definitely go the numbers route as well. Yeah, but I think for us is we want to make sure that the story comes first and foremost, because this is one of the design principles that I've kind of been guided by ever since like the Euro board game invasion, which is, before that came along, designers would always talk about what are the game mechanics, and the Euro board game invasion changed that and said, what is the play dynamic we want around the table? What do we want our players to feel? What is the player interactions we want? How do we want a healthy player dynamic? Where's the fun coming from? And then, now let's talk about the game mechanics that reinforce that. So this is why I want to put the story of Athcliath and the people that live in Athcliath and the players going on an adventure together first, and then say, okay, now what mechanics do we put in that undergird that and make that happen as a fun experience around the table? And for sure, we're not going to overlook the people that love their numbers.
Right. No, that's good. It's something for everybody, in other words. So I've got two questions. One of them actually is from somebody on here, and it's all in Japanese, so I really can't read their name. How easy is to change a job? Is it just a matter of fact of saying, you know what, oh, I'm tired of being a baker, now I want to be a woodsmith, or now I want to be, I want to be a blacksmith, so I'll go over and apprentice over here. Is it that simple?
Yep. So there's going to be a life path with pros and cons. So you could make yourself older, and it allows you more job progressions and changes, but it comes at a cost. So there will be costs. Each one of these leaps forward that you want to take. So it's kind of really comes down to your choice. How do you want to make your character? One of the things that we were tossing around just this past week was we were looking at the street urchin archetype. And we were like playing around with the idea of, what if we had just an adventure where like you've got 5 players, say we're playing street urchins that are like trying to survive on the streets, and what kind of adventures would we have for them? Are they trying to like find, like, first of all, a place to squat, like just a building that's abandoned, and then after that maybe there's a haunting there, they have to deal with a fairy or some monster that's taken up residence there. And then after that, well, what happens if a street gang comes by and tries to extort them and make them, like underlings or something? But what other adventures are going to come from that? So that's how we're approaching each one of these little archetypes. Is like, what are the story opportunities out of each one of them?
Well, it sounds great, because also you're going to be centered more toward pickpocket, sleight of hand, for their main. If they're starting off as a street urchin, they're going to want these survival skills, which would be the ones they're not going to hurt anybody, but they're going to have to be good at, but not being seen.
Got it.
I guess, And my other thought was, is there, and this could be, you could just say no and it's fine. When you were talking about earlier about your character dies in a glorious death, and then everybody sings their praises. They get sent to either Valhalla or whatever it is they're going up there, right? Whichever realm they're going to end up in. And let's say you're running a campaign or a game, and you have somebody join the game, and they don't want to just start off with, oh, my character is just this little guy over here now. Would they be able to take one of these characters that died, or have the DM create one, being sent back down by Odin or somebody else, and say, that's where you're going to start, and here's your story, and you're this epic kind of character? Would that work in the game, or is that not something that would be feasible?
Okay, so you're saying like take a immortal character and have someone that hasn't played an immortal character before or built up their player levels play one of them?
Right.
Out of the
They
gate?
haven't built up through the game, and let's say that I go and let's say I move.
Yeah.
And I go to another town, and somebody's playing, and I've played Fate of the Norns before, but I don't have a character that I can use in their campaign. Would I be able to drop in as one of these past characters that died and got sent and got, their stories raised up, and they went and come down and play that character? Would it be unbalanced, or would that be something you could do?
Yeah, if you've got the cred for it, like you've already done it and you've played, and you've gotten the levels for it, absolutely you could. That's pretty much how it's understood in our community. That
right.
And one of the things that we've also put in these gates for player levels is we put certain player archetypes even behind certain gates, because certain archetypes require you to understand a little bit more of the mythology or the
Mm-hmm.
history or the lore of the universe to be able to play them effectively. So, for example, the Orlog that I was describing there, the mad humans that play with creation magic, those guys are behind 3 player levels because there is a lot of lore around playing those guys. Um,
Right.
and so you can't have like someone that just never played Fate of the Norns before going, I want to play an Orlog and let's see how this goes. Um, yeah, so that's one of the I guess the other design principles behind it was we want you to get your feet wet, learn the world, learn the lore, and then we'll gradually open up more doors to you,
Mm-hmm.
the stuff that's appropriate based on your experience level.
Okay, that's all. Okay, that answered my question right there, because it hit me all of a sudden, thinking, hey, somebody could come in and play one of those, but I didn't know if that would be feasible. So I have another question here from AJ Pickett. Let's say I just got the game and I want to suss it out before I run it for my friends. Can I make a sort of solo adventure like in D&D Basic?
Uh, that's something we have been kicking around the offices since the pandemic, and it's
No,
something we
is it?
want to do. Yes, we don't have one yet, and
You
I
don't
would
have
like
one.
to have that run on a mobile phone. So I would like to have that as a mobile app, and I think it might be one of our next Kickstarters.
Oh,
Uh,
nice.
yeah, and there was even some consideration if this was a wildly successful and we'd be like at 80K right now, it'd probably been a stretch goal that we would have thrown in here. Um, but yeah, this is definitely on my. Yeah,
Is it really?
yeah, it is. I definitely want a
This man can never
GM-less
die.
adventure. Yeah, a GM-less adventure.
Okay, but also I think he's also talking about using this, just say, um, dropping it into, um, I guess like D&D Basic. I'm not sure what it. I don't know. I've been playing since 1979, so a lot of the stuff they talk about now, I have no idea what they're talking about, and the newer stuff, 5e, So D&D Basic, I think immediately go back to the basic set of D&D when we had chit cards. But so can he create his own solo game just for to kind of feel out the world itself? Is there something that or as we're talking about, is that what Fafnir's treasure is about, or is
So
this more of a
it's not a solo game, Fafnir's Treasure, but Fafnir's Treasure is our introductory adventure. So
okay?
Fafnir's Treasure has a little bit of lore. It has light rules that all you need to play the adventure. It has pre-generated characters. The pre-generated characters have cheat sheets on them. Basically, we don't want the players bugging the GM because the GM is learning the game as well. So the pre-gen characters also have the rules like on the actual gen characters.
Right,
And
right.
then we even have in the adventure, like, read this to your players. If they go right, then this happens. If they go left, this happens. So even if it's your very first time running a role playing game, we kind of explain how decision trees would work in a role playing game, how you would deal with players doing things that are not linear. And then when the first combat hits, rather than having the GM go back to the rules section, we take the combat rules and we put it right into the adventure. So, like the initiative and if you're using minis, we suggest this is how you would place them on the table, and all of that. So, yeah, Fafnir's Treasure is kind of the we hold your hand through it so you can't fall down.
Now, as we talk about Fafnir's treasure, it's right here. So I have a copy. I printed out the first page here, and so what we're going to do, we're actually going to do a giveaway, and I'll post more about that on the website on the Fans of Ed Greenwood. We're actually going to give away an adventure um, of here, and I'll put down the rules for it. So this is the basic adventure for Fate of the Norns. So all you guys listen out there, so you can possibly, or you can always go to drive through RPG and pick that up as well.
We
Because I know
appreciate the
it's there.
support.
Absolutely, absolutely. We are going to give away a couple of copies of the game of this adventure to kind of whet people's taste for the game itself. And but we'll come up with some stuff how we're going to do that, and we'll put that. I'll probably put that up tomorrow.
And
So
and if we get to that stretch goal and do the adventure deck, some of the adventures will be um, completely suitable for a starting character because they're They are go on a treasure hunt, as in go here in the city, talk
Hmm.
to this guy, get this, take this to that guy somewhere else in the city. So you'll be literally walking around the city, um, getting your feet wet, interacting with what a D&D guy would call non-player characters. You know, so yeah, some of them will be suitable for a starter and a
Right.
novice gamer, somebody who's never role played before.
Right. You know what I'm thinking, Ed, and I'm going to throw you on the spot so you can you can you can chastise me later if you like. But what about doing? But why would we want to do a play with Ed Greenwood and do one of these adventures and do some lucky fans get together and
Uh,
with Andrew, of course.
yeah, yeah,
But
because
no,
we need.
yeah,
We did that at GaryCon, and
yeah.
I am not competent to be a Norn yet. I'm not good enough for the rules. So
Totally are.
Andrew has to do that part of that. All I
No,
can do
it
is
would be
do the
Andrew.
funny voices. Okay.
No, no, absolutely, and I put Andrew on the spot as well because I don't know if you know, Andrew, we do fans every year go like to do a drawing and we set up a gaming with Ed Greenwood, and we
Okay.
do a customized adventure for about 5 hours on a Saturday once a year,
Okay.
and play with Ed just so these fans can get a chance to see what it's like to play an actual D&D game and not one that other people do, you know.
Right.
So I mean, I'm thinking that this may be a good way to introduce this to people as well. Either if you did Fafnir's Treasure or something similar, it doesn't have to be a long game, but if you have something in the wings that you want to maybe flesh out, and we could do a gaming with you and Ed, and we also have our other people, Stephen and Eric and George, and we usually bring in like three or four fans to play as well.
I think it could totally work because when we did GaryCon in March, Ed and I were already doing Athleath content.
Oh,
So
you were?
Ed had an adventure that we were running players through. The only thing we had to work out was a little bit of the pacing because it was like first time. So we had like our story arc and we had to try to fit it into 4 hours. I think by
Mm-hmm.
the end of it we had it, but the first couple of them we were like, gotta pick up the pace. I don't think we're gonna get through this in 4 hours.
Holy crap! They haven't left the tavern yet.
Oh no, that sounds like an Eric DeB
Yeah,
adventure right
yeah,
there.
yeah.
No, I mean, but this could last as long as you wanted to. This could be, an hour and a half. It could be 4 hours. It could be 6 hours. It could be whatever's useful, as long as everybody's having fun and we all, we all can stay in front of the computers for that long. I
And
think would
roll
be a
20.
great way. Yeah.
And on roll 20, what happened was with the pandemic, we tried to play a rune based game on roll 20. You can imagine how well that went the first time. Um, I wanted to blow my brains out. And
Right.
then
Right.
the second time, I'm like, I'm ready to quit. And then my beta testers said, Andrew, hold on. Give us 2 weeks. We're going to make character sheets. We're going to put the runes into the game so you can actually see the runes, draw the runes from the bag at random, clean up the
Right.
runes. We're going to have our play mats. You're going to have your character sheets. You're going to have macros to switch from. And I'm like, this all sounds like magic. Okay, I'll be back in 2 weeks. And they blew me away.
Really?
The entire game now is in roll 20. You can
Oh,
it
nice.
runs butter smooth, like so nice.
Oh
So
my
anyone who
God.
wants to try this on roll 20, the whole package is there. You can pick up the Fate of the Norns character sheets, and then the macros and Egil Saga. The first saga is available for
Right.
purchase. Yeah, oh, it's
No,
crazy.
awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome. Okay.
guys are little geniuses.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Let's see what we got here. Anything else on there? Let's see. They're using words like gorgeous and excellent on here, so it's good. The people watching, so that's good to see. That's good to see. Um, let's
Well, the
see.
stuff is gorgeous. Yeah.
No, it is. I mean, if you guys that are listening right now haven't seen it, go to that Kickstarter. I already put the link into the chat, and look at the artwork. This is just incredible. It's just beautiful. It really makes you feel the setting, I think, and it's almost like a stained glass look to it.
And if you go through the updates, we actually blow up the art because in the project page you can't see it in its full glorious
Hmm.
resolution. So especially
Well, I
the
made it
graphic
bigger.
novels. The graphic novels, you can see them. I think the page is fully blown up. And we also have a linen tapestry of Midgard. That's
my
a
God,
Kickstarter
really?
exclusive. That's the one hanging behind me over here.
Oh, that's
So
beautiful. Look at that.
we bring that to conventions. We'll have it at PAX this weekend, but we don't sell it. So it's a Kickstarter exclusive. We never sell it at booths
I'll give
or
you
online.
$1,000 for
Nope.
it right now. You
Online
go ahead and
only
take
on Kickstarter. That's the only time.
Is it going to be linen as well, or is it going to
Yes.
be?
Yeah,
Is it?
it's on linen. Exactly.
And what's the size of it?
It's 24 by 36 inches.
24 by 36. So
Yeah.
you don't have to have a like a picture of it or a GIF or any or a,
You see it
Ah,
on the project page. So scroll down to the extras on the Kickstarter project page. You'll see it in
oh, there it is.
relation to
Wait,
all of our 8.5 by 11 books.
I see it right there. Let me see if I can get
ooh.
if other people aren't seeing it. Let me just switch this over real quick, and we'll share the screen on this and
Because
let
we
this.
have little tiny ones that we
Yeah, that's gorgeous. Look at that picture. Look at that. Well, I want to get my hands on that. You sure you don't want to sell it, huh?
well, you can get it at the Kickstarter. You can
Oh,
buy
I
it on
know,
the
I know,
Kickstarter.
I know. That's
Oh, isn't it
terrific. No,
beautiful?
that is beautiful. Look at that. Look at that.
And we have a
So,
board game in the works. Then that's going to be the board.
is it really? Oh, nice.
And this is the
That I
one
can't.
you can get online. With the last Kickstarter, we produced this one. It's a small one, small
I.
version of the Celtic region of
Oh,
our
nice.
world. So Athliath is right there at the epicenter.
That's clear. Yep, there it is, right there.
Yep, you got it. So
Oh,
this
beautiful. That is
Mm-hmm.
beautiful.
this one we're going to bring to the show. This one people can buy.
Oh man, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I can't wait for that. That's terrific.
I
Yes,
am
I am
having
going to do
so
it.
much fun with this. This is cool. It's a lot of work, but it's fun work.
Right, right.
Oh my god,
Well, y'all.
the stuff that Ed's coming up with is just a joy to read through, and just the imagination's blowing up. I'm like, oh my god, the stories. I could be running like 7 weekly games, like one every day, night of the week, with a different story arc running through Athliath.
Oh
There's
yeah.
just so many adventure hooks that are in there already, and we're not even done the city yet.
Now, and that's going to be in the stuff also, like hooks for gaming or um.
Yeah, and of course you can get a lot of those for free on Twitter. Every day I post new news and
Right,
rumors.
right, right.
Um, yeah, we should put those in a book. Yes.
Yes. The PDF. There you go. I like it. I like it. Well, is that everything, guys? You got anything else you want to talk about on here? We have what, 5 days left on the Kickstarter to so guys don't it's just still
Yeah, we
still
need everybody in the world to go and back this.
And spread
So
the
yes,
word.
yeah,
no, absolutely spread the word.
Like forums, like nworld, rpg.net, like all those RPG hubs, wherever you guys hang out and chat
Wherever
with
gamers
people.
hang out, there you go.
Where
yeah,
gamers hang out.
Oh, AJ Pickett just said he's backing it right now. Click.
excellent. That's the thing. We need to see this happen, and to do it, people have to put their shekels down.
Put their shekels down.
The
Oh,
game
that's
that you use when the chips are down.
the chips are down. Wow, this is and this see and look at the levels. Most of these are print on demand, right?
Yeah, so you're going to get an option where you can get
Right.
this either shipped to you or you can do print on demand.
Okay. And then of course the big level, the Hulk there is that's the full box set.
Yeah, and there's still early backer pledge tier that's available.
Oh really?
Early bird. Go down to early bird. It's the third to last pledge tier.
Oh,
There,
is it? Okay. Let me
yeah.
see. Third to last. Early bird one, two.
Not used to that. Usually the early birds are
Oh, there
gone
it
in the
is, right
first
there. Early
24
bird.
hours.
Is it? Yeah. Here you go. Early bird full anthology box set. Limited time backers receive first come first served. Receive everything in this Kickstarter plus stretch goals. Nice. That's a good price too. Oh, my wife's gonna kill me. Okay.
Not if she doesn't know about it, Jeff.
Now is she gonna know about it? Every time I buy something, it bings on her phone.
Oh my God.
More spankings.
Well,
Yeah.
more spankings. That's right. That's right.
Oh dear. I gotta get me one of those phones.
You've been scheduled for a spanking
Yeah,
at
yeah.
midnight.
Oh dear. Oh, that's gonna cut into my gaming time, honey.
Hey, AJ, thank you. AJ just tweeted about it, and he's going to post it on Facebook as well
All right.
in his
Thank you.
channel. So that's great. Thank you, AJ. Appreciate it. AJ,
Thank you. Because
Thank
we only
you.
got 5 days left. We need this thing to go over the top.
That's right.
And look at those stretch goals we went through. If it goes soaring over the top, there's going to be so much cool stuff. I mean, if it goes all the way to the top, you're practically getting double.
No, you are. I mean, if you look at this, I mean, you guys can see it doesn't come up well on the share screen here, but if you go to the Kickstarter page, it's down toward the bottom. I think it's close to the bottom of the page. And
9
it
books
shows you
to
all
14 books.
Yeah, and 14 books, linen maps,
Venture deck.
chits, not chits, are the rune cards,
And
everything.
1,
Yeah.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 guest game designers writing adventures.
Incredible. So that's that we get it funded to the full. That would be 9 adventures right there. That could keep you busy for a long time.
Yep. And we want this to be your sandbox that you can use for years in your home game. I mean, yeah, we're gamers. We're all going to buy new stuff when we hear about it and it comes out. But if you didn't have the time or the money to go out and get new stuff all the time, there should be enough here that you can play for years. That's the goal. So then it becomes discretionary. It's, do I want to go buy this new thing? Not, I don't have time to do up an adventure. I got to go buy something. No, that shouldn't be part of it. It should be, I've got enough here for the rest of my life.
No,
And
absolutely.
that's why we're going to do the Patreon and keep going.
And what I think too is that, and the people are thirsty for these kind of games, especially with Viking, Gaelic, Scott, everything you can think of. Because I mean, look how the Viking shows took off. There's a lot of Viking stuff on TV now and things coming out. So I think people are thirsty for something like this thing, and it sounds like it's a lot easier. I mean, if I can grow up through Thaco, I can do anything. You say Thaco now, people used to say you don't have to use math out of high school. Well, yeah, you did. You needed math with Thaco. So, but this sounds like anybody could sit down and learn this and have a great time at it.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to make it as easy to learn and as quick to pick up as possible. We want this to be, people's first RPG experience. If this is what we can pull off here, as stores recommending this as, hey, you never played an RPG? Afterlife, grab it, start, and you can play here for years to come.
Yeah, that's the whole idea. It's beautiful. Artwork's beautiful, and the map is going to be beautiful. It already is beautiful.
And there's a lot outside the city walls. I mean, Ed can talk a little bit about that as well too. So we talked about the 96 city blocks. So just to put a number on the 96 city blocks, so that one overview book that Ed talked about, 96 city blocks on average have 10 buildings in them. Mm-hmm. If he's giving you a description on each building, that's like what, 1,000 buildings, and there's a one person per building in that overview. That's 1,000 NPCs in 1,000 buildings in that one book. We're not even looking at the tour guide book yet. The tour guide book is the deep dive, right? This is the overview. 1,000 buildings, 1,000 NPCs.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
that's going to be good. You'll never run out of game ideas or people to use and NPCs. It's going to be great.
So Ed, what's outside the walls?
Exactly.
Here's the thing. Well, the one thing we didn't tell you about yet, you see, there's a storm cloud to every silver lining.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you get your first job and it's a paper route or something like that, And oh wow, people give you money. I can run out and buy these comics and these games and these records. Okay, I'm showing my age. It was records when I was a kid, and you went out and
Me
bought
too.
stuff, and then your dad cuts off your allowance because now you're making more than he does in discretionary because you don't have to pay any taxes yet. And then it's time to pay taxes. Well, guess what? If you're in Athlias, the king taxes at 100%. Because he needs the money. Nobody's quite sure what for. Maybe he's just a greedy tyrant, but he taxes at 100%. He doubles the cost of everything you buy. And real estate, because everybody's pouring inside the city, which has walls, is going up and up and up and up in value. It's just like being in a confined city in our real world. The real estate starts to soar. Well,
Right.
the way you avoid both those things, because you can move around when the tax collectors come outside the city walls to try and tax you, and because you're not within the city walls, so the real estate doesn't belong to anybody, it isn't going up, is to live in the tent city. And if you look at that city map we drew, from the river gate at the bottom over to the palace, nobody can live there because it's a swamp or it's open running water. But from the river gate north, which is that long, narrow bit of the city where it looks more and more like a triangle, all that bit there is tent city.
So take a look at the map that's after the picture of the fairy lantern and the old stump on the project description. That's got the tent city in there.
That's what I'm looking at right now. Oh, is that all those dots out there?
Yeah, but this map's resolution, if we're talking about pixels, I think it's 16,000 pixels wide.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Well, here, I'm going to share that here in case they haven't, not on the page, but there it is. There's a tent city over here, correct? On the
Yeah, you got it.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. And there's the king. Is that where the king is here?
Yeah, the fortress.
Yeah, that's the palace.
And is this swamp here? What is
yeah, that's a little bit of swamp. And you see when the puddle overflows in spring, the puddle overflows into that and then runs down to the Liffey.
Oh, like this.
The Liffey east is at the top of the map as it happens, and the Liffey is flowing from the narrow part of the city. It's flowing downstream to the sea, and then twice a day the tide is coming up and pushing, and the river Poddle is coming from the bottom of the map and running into the Black Pool, which is here, which is Dublin, the Black Pool, and which is a big swamp. And then this is the Iron Gate, the little bridge on the right hand side of the map.
Over here.
Yeah, that's the Iron Gate, which leads to some rich farms all the way along the Liffey, the banks of the Liffey. So we haven't covered the farms. Eventually. But we will get into the tent city. But we got to get this into your hands first. The city,
right
itself, inside the walls. There's only one of me. I'm gonna be working like a dog once we, at least if we fund, I will be working like a dog. If we don't fund, I guess I get to finally take a nap. I don't know.
We all go for an extended nap.
You'll still work like a dog.
Yeah, that's true. I'll still work like a dog. Yeah, because I don't know what else to create stuff every waking moment.
You don't ever stop.
Well, because people on Twitter will never stop asking me about things in the realms, and some of the things aren't because they are new to the game and haven't bothered to look it up in the rulebook. Some of them really are stuff that has to be covered. And after 50 odd years, there's things about any setting that still haven't been covered, which is why we're going to do a Patreon and keep going with the city, because we know there's
the questions are going to come.
Yeah.
And then we can cover it there in one place. Everything will be in one place.
Right.
And the content will just keep rolling out there monthly.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, Artie says mapping is overrated, Ed. I don't believe it.
Well, yeah.
Well, it's content isn't. On content is always good. Okay.
Yeah. We want you. We want to do the work for you, so you can spend your valuable time playing adventures
Right.
and having fun. Because somebody, and I when I first started doing this, way all those years ago, somebody said, "You're detailing that," and I said, "We're asking money for this. You know, we're expecting some guy to give up some of his paycheck for this. If
Yeah.
we've got to do the work, what else is he or she paying for? You know." And I still feel that way. It's like, we should do the work
Right.
because
Right.
you're paying for this. I'm having the effrontery to charge you money for it. Oh, I better do the work then.
Okay. You have anything else to talk about on this, Andrew?
No, I think we're good. I think we did the whole rounds, everything. So I thank you for having us. I appreciate
yeah.
the time, the platform. I hope your three winners enjoy Fafnir's treasure.
I hope they do too. No, they're going to. No, we do this. I mean, you're welcome back, especially when you start gaining more content. You're welcome back to come on when Ed and I and a few other people do this as much as we can, which unfortunately isn't as much as we want to. But you're welcome to come back on, especially after the Kickstarter is over and we see where you are and anything else you want to promote and come on and do. And like you said before, here's Fafnir's Fafnir's treasure that we're going to be giving away 3 of those PDFs. So we'll let you know what the rules are going to be on that.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And we're going to be at PAX Unplugged. So if any of you are watching, it'll be at PAX Unplugged this weekend. Come by our booth. You can check out all our stuff in the flesh.
Yeah, and if you want people to get a hold of you, what ways can people get a hold of you?
So our official website is fateofthenorns.com. Our Twitter handle is fateofthenornsr. We're on Instagram at I think Fate of the Norns. Patreon, Fate of the Norns.
So you tell me it's Fate of the Norns.
YouTube, Fate of the Norns. Yeah. I think there's an underlying theme here.
I think there is.
Who are these URLs?
Well,
Whatever platform you're looking for us, just type in Fate of the Norns.
Just type in Fate of the we'll just type it in Google and there you go. You're going to find everything that you need, I think. Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. Ed, we know how to get a hold of you.
Yeah, I live here.
Well, Andrew, I want you to keep in mind. Think about doing a game if you want. If you want to,
Yep.
With all of Ed's ideas, all he has to do is throw you some ideas, and I bet you could throw something together for
I think
a one
so.
shot.
This man has cool ideas of his own.
Yeah.
Really.
No, whoever. Whoever. I mean, Ed won't be DMing it, but you're going to be the Norn, right?
Yeah.
And the players are called dwellers. I think I read on there, right? Okay, yeah. So Ed will be a dweller along with us and some fans, and you'll be able to walk us through how to do this. It's a fascinating looking Kickstarter. I really can. Really, I'm excited. So yes, I am going to back it. Damn it, I'm going to do it.
Sounds good. Perfect.
I just did Matt Forbeck, so I'm gonna tell my wife, "Oh, sorry, I hit the button by accident." Yeah, there it is.
All right, and I've been streaming on our channel as well. So
yeah, terrific.
So everyone on our channel, go check out this channel as well. I was wrong here; it was on YouTube rather than on Twitch.
Well, we have a Twitch channel, but we've had some technical difficulties with meeting up with my computer and Twitch. So
why don't you tell our audience how they can reach you on a regular basis? Where are you at?
Oh, fantastic. Well, Ed and I can always be reached on Fans of Ed Greenwood on Facebook. You can reach us at Mages and Sages podcast over on YouTube. That's where we're streaming right now. And you can get me at J.E. Thetford or Jeff Thetford at Facebook if you want to look for me. I'll answer questions as much as I can. Ed is on Twitter. What you at the Edverse?
At the Edverse, yes.
At the Edverse on Twitter. But one good way to do it is on the Fans of Ed Greenwood. And it encompasses a lot of mostly the Forgotten Realms, but now that we have this, we can start encompassing this as well. But how any other way there, Ed? I mean, I'm on Twitter at J.E. Thetford on Twitter. Unfortunately, my hours at work preclude me from staying awake long enough to check my Twitter feed sometimes. So,
I understand that. Really, I understand.
and
that.
the older I get, the harder it becomes. Because we're not that Ed and I aren't that far apart in age here. So, I guess I'm just a lot prettier. I didn't.
Yes, you're
yeah.
pretty. Yeah, I am not. So if you need a wingman, I don't.
Gentlemen,
I need a tail gunner. What are you talking about?
Yeah, okay.
it's been a blast.
Yeah.
It has been a
Skål.
blast.